Hello everyone, and welcome to the Commexis Cast Daily. Today we're talking about YouTube adding Wikipedia articles to some conspiracy videos, whether Wikipedia likes it or not. Hello everyone, I'm Matthew McGrorty, the videographer and podcaster here at Commexis, and today I'm joined by the lead strategist at Commexis, Phillip Brooks.
Good morning.
So our first story, YouTube adding Wikipedia articles to conspiracy videos. So obviously this comes in response to a lot of controversial videos coming up in their trending, top #1 videos trending section on the site, which is algorithmically chosen by YouTube itself. And some critics also say that they are designed to push viewers to extremes and extreme opinions, et cetera, et cetera. So you might remember last month as well that some videos of the survivors of the Parkland shooting were also being called crisis actors. Well, a video of that appeared at the #1 trending, and ever since then there's been a lot of pressure on YouTube to sort of figure out what they're going to be doing with these conspiracy videos. Susan Wojcicki, the YouTube CEO, spoke Tuesday evening at a panel at South by Southwest Interactive Festival in Austin and showed some examples of these information cues, which you will be seeing now. So the feature is going to be launching in the coming months, and basically, from what I've seen of the pictures, we'll be adding small Wikipedia descriptions underneath. It looks like the title of the YouTube video. So the examples that were given were, this conspiracy of the faked moon landing, and it will have a Wikipedia article focusing on that. So before we get too much more into it, what do you think of this, Philip, before I start dishing my hot take?
I mean, obviously, the credulousness of the general public is always frightening to me, I guess, because the fact that these things gain any traction at all is always so alarming. But I think they have to take some steps to it to kind of curb it. I don't know what the answer is, other short of editorial control. To me, I would just slap a big label that says satire on all of the ones that I think are crazy like that. But I think looking to find a trustworthy source that can verify that these are not as they claim would be ideal. However, the most that I find when dealing with people that believe these kinds of things is they don't believe any credible sources. They only believe their own sources. So I don't know how much help that's going to be. But if you're somebody who's in the middle that's capable of being swayed by this, I think you're pretty much beyond help at that point if you're going to be somebody that's that easy to sway with something that's that utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, what bothers me a lot about it, and I think you touched on a couple of great points there, is that not that Wikipedia isn't necessarily a trustworthy source, because some people would argue. I think Wikipedia probably doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. I think it's relatively accurate, and there were a couple tweets from the executive director of Wikimedia, so the people who own or run Wikipedia, and she also said that you're supposed to, in this tweet thread, you're supposed to look at Wikipedia with a critical eye. Most of it is going to be accurate or relatively accurate, but there's always going to be small things that could be changed or corrected. Wikipedia, for reference, was not in talks with YouTube to have this added. YouTube just decided that them, along with a couple other sources, were going to be used for this project. But my main issue with it is, adding a Wikipedia source, as you mentioned, probably isn't going to sway anybody. So if the problem is conspiracy videos, and we look at what Facebook did with this might be the fake news identifier or something like that, or even Facebook using Wikipedia potentially in the past as sources of, hey, you can read a description of what this organization is from Wikipedia. We kind of know that this doesn't work as well as they expect it to, hopefully.
It's kind of already baked into the fact that it's called a conspiracy in the first place, because these people who believe that there's a conspiracy are not going to be capable of differentiating, well, this is part of the main conspiracy. They're just going to go ahead and apply that brush to everything that would be considered, well, Wikipedia is part, they're in on it. They're in on it. They're all in on it. So to be honest, I don't know how helpful this will be. But I mean, if you're in the middle, I can't imagine what 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 kind of person's in the middle that would be swayed by this, but
I don't know.
If that is the case, that there's somebody that wasn't already down this path that suddenly saw this and was like, oh wow, yeah, there's crisis actors. I weep for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the solution isn't putting Wikipedia articles to give people more information, though that is certainly helpful to some extent. I think the issue is if you don't like these conspiracy videos and YouTube is finding them to be a problem in that sense, that they should just get rid of them or something like that. I mean, there's also been other stories of conspiracy videos that have been able to pass through as more credible news sources because they feature clips from news, and YouTube's algorithm wasn't able to figure out that this actually wasn't a news clip, right? So I don't know. Some could argue editorial control is a little much, but at the end of the day, it's YouTube's platform, and if they're trying to find solution to these things that they deem as problems, I don't really think this is much.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Really, it's they don't want to be known as controlling the editorial content, but in the end, this is just as damaging as any of the other stuff out there, like the Comet Pizza stuff, where an unhinged person may go out and act upon this clearly false information, and so they have at least some moral responsibility to make sure that what they're putting out there doesn't put the general public in danger.
Yeah. Well, YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki did not specify how many conspiracies were going to be on the initial list. Initially, they're going to be going after some of the more well-known ones, but they said that they're going to be hopefully expanding it over time to get some potentially controversial elements in the future and cover those. So today we're talking about chatbots. Specifically, eMarketer just came out with a report that chatbot use for marketers has actually been decreasing in comparison to some earlier numbers from 2006 to 2017. So in December 2017, Freeman International and ClickZ surveyed 500 marketers from the US and UK, and just 7% of respondents said they currently use AI-powered chatbots, while another 27 reported that they're looking into using chatbots, and most respondents said their company was either not ready or did not have the budget to develop them yet. And a December 2017 report from Conductor showed that 34% of the worldwide marketing executives polled said AI was the marketing trend they felt most unprepared for in 2018. So before we get into some more numbers, why do you think that this is?
I don't know. I think that people are a little bit afraid of the chatbot because it is an AI, and there's things that could happen that potentially could reflect negatively on the brand, or especially if you're in an industry that's more likely to function on face-to-face kind of meetings, things like that. But I think if you're dealing primarily with a millennial or younger audience, they're going to be people that are far more comfortable with this technology. But if you're still somebody that's working in dealing with outreach with older folks or people that are above that millennials and Gen X even and above, I think you're probably going to find a little bit of resistance to that model. But we do know that as part of our regular programming on the digital transformation, that this is a key element of having the 24/7 availability to at least get answers to questions, even if it is a chatbot that's interactive. It's a key part of what most companies are doing going forward. And if you're a company that is B2C, you need to have some sort of 24/7 channel available to them, whether it's social media, whether it's a chatbot, with something that allows people to get an answer to their questions right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And going off of what you mentioned with brands worrying about their brand safety, so here's a small little comparison from 2016 to 2018, and then a couple reasons why some brands have discontinued their chatbots. So in 2016, there were 51 companies making chatbots, and then there was a bubble burst, so to speak. So a lot of companies started discontinuing them, such as Everlane and Spring. So Facebook Messenger had a couple bots, and Facebook deactivated a decent amount of them for high failure rates, and they started creating their own languages, which was, I remember when that story broke out and the chatbots were talking to each other. Very, very interesting stuff. So definitely check that out. I'll see if I can link it in the blog post of our podcast. But the failure rate for these Facebook chatbots that got discontinued were 70%, meaning that bots could only get to 30% of requests without some sort of human intervention. I don't know how these bots obviously were sort of set up, but I think that it makes complete sense that Facebook would shut them down with such a high failure rate. But I also think that to some extent it comes to what are you using the chatbot for? So obviously something like Facebook Messenger, there's a lot of opportunities for a chatbot use. But I wonder if they work better in very specific scenarios. So for example, Starbucks and I believe it was Staples have been using them to confirm drinks for Starbucks and just confirm orders at Staples. So I'm assuming something kind of like either placing an order or just checking up on order status. And I think that might be one of the better ways to do it in the sense of there's less that can kind of go wrong.
Yeah, I think the problem is that there's a tremendous amount of branching logic trees that need to be fully fleshed out when you're building a chatbot as a customer service tool. There's anytime that somebody asks a question, you need to follow that to every possible iteration and ending. And those pathways can get extremely complex very quickly. And I think that when people are starting these chatbots up, they're not thinking about the full buyer's journey and all the different places and questions that people could be asking. And I mean, in that respect, it's actually a very good learning tool if you're following what's going on. Because if you see repeated failure on certain questions or things like, you learn a lot more about what people are asking about when they're dealing with your product. So. I think in this case, it's less of a failure and more of an opportunity to understand exactly what it is you're doing. But I also think that, a chatbot isn't a set and forget it kind of thing.
Yeah,
somebody needs to be monitoring that channel. If you're getting a lot of questions about a certain thing, especially if you're a business, let's say you're, you're running an IT company or something like that. Maybe there's a server down or something like that. If you see that volume increase rapidly and people are coming about the same kinds of questions, that should be somebody should be monitoring that to make sure that they can react in real time. Even if it's, they're only able to get 70% of the messages through, those 70%, if they're all about the same thing, that there's a problem.
Google is testing updates to their mobile search layout. You'll be seeing an image of what it looks like now, or at least what the test looks like now. So the differences between the new look and the old look, which if I'm smart, I will hopefully be showing you a comparison image. Basically,
we know Matt is very smart.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
So in essence, the Google logo has now been removed and instead replaced with the Google G, the multicolored G, and it is now in or around the search bar. Makes it a little bit easier, moves some things up so you can get some search results even faster without having to scroll too much. And then also they've rounded out some of the boxes. So a little before they were slightly rounded, and now they're much more rounded, sort of like a squircle almost sort of shape. And I believe, if I'm correct, there's a little bit of a drop shadow. They seem to pop more when I was comparing them. So that's the general gist of it. They're going to be testing this out. Occasionally, you're going to be able to see, it looks like some Google Doodles. So the Paralympics Google Doodle from Android Police, they taken some images. You were able to see the Paralympics one, but it doesn't look like you're able to see other ones. So it will depend on what special event is going on and if the Google Doodles are worth showing. They have one basically every day, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So just
how do you
something
get on that team? That seems like a fun job.
Yeah, that sounds really enjoyable, actually. So just something to be aware of. I mean, I know we've talked before on the show about Google revamping the design of their search layout. I don't think this is obviously that broad of a step. I think it is important that mobile looks good and pops a little bit more, especially in comparison. You'll see, I think this popping out just gives a better, almost more natural feel when you're going through, or I don't know how to word it. Well, it looks nice.
It looks. I mean, again, Google's will always tell you their first and last rule is it's about user experience. So whatever changes they make to that interface is in some way, shape, or form related to somebody else's definition of what the best user experience is. So if you always start from that model and then work backward, you can kind of track what changes were made and why they may have been made. And then, like Matt said, the drop shadow makes things pop. We know we're on Google. I don't need the old Google written out. The G there is helpful. Just the UI looks a little nicer, that kind of thing. So in this case, it seems like more of a polished thing than less about usability. But we never know how the stuff working in the background is working as well. I wonder if there's been any other changes, related to the algorithmic update, or is it just a coincidence that these two things happen so close to one another?
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a distinct feeling it might just be a coincidence.
Yeah,
But
there's so many disparate teams working there.
Yeah.
They probably, none of them even know what the other ones are doing. It's such a huge company and such a huge undertaking anyway. So,
in essence, it looks pretty. There you go. That's all for today's episode of the Commexis Cast Daily. Check us out tomorrow for more of the latest trending news. Have a great day.